Hi, my name is Karen E. Wells and welcome to this professional Counselling for Addictions course. Now we're moving on to Module 1. So right now you've listened to the introduction video, you've downloaded or had access to the training manual. Now it's really important that as we move through this course you do have access to that training manual, which you can simply get by clicking the link in the lecture before this. The videos really are just highlights of the in-depth information that we're giving you within the training manual, and you should know that at the end of each module there's some self-assessment tasks. Now the self-assessment tasks are really just for your own learning, so please go with those and really make sure that you're up to speed with the self-assessment tasks so you're getting the learning from the course before you move into the next module. Okay, so let's look at Module 1, which is all about what is addiction. So in the introduction video, we said that we would be looking at the main aspects of addiction and probably the most common ones that somebody's going to come to you with. So we're looking at drug addiction, alcohol addiction, gambling addiction, and sex addiction. So let's move into exactly what addiction is. So you'll see me move the training manual up and down as we work through the course, but again reference that, print it off, have the access to yourself because there will be more information in there rather than just the highlights of what we're giving to you within the training manual. So the 4 addictions that we've spoken about are going to be the most commonly seen really within your practice. So remember that this course is aimed at those of you that are already practicing as a counsellor, or you're already learning the art of counselling and you want to add an addiction counselling onto the end of it. If we look at drugs, of course there's many different drugs available, some of which are highly addictive, some are type of drugs which can of course have long or short-term use. We're going to be looking as the course moves through at the root of the problem and how to identify with your client when there is a problem. But you know, there's also gambling as well, and the gambler may take illegal drugs too, that secondary could become another addiction within them. So each addiction has different issues and different treatment requirements. This, of course, is going to change how you're going to do the therapy sessions. Sex addiction, of course, is increasingly common and can be broken down into different aspects. It could be online pornography, or it could be an actual sex addiction even itself. Now, what it's good to know is that really everybody can become addicted. There's not one person on the planet that does not have it in them to become addicted, and it's most of the time they're covering up some kind of emotion or something that's gone on in their life that they've just not been able to handle. Most of all, and as you'll see as we work through this course, as with any counselling aspect, it's not judgmental, it's completely confidential. But you're not to judge your client as well, because at the end of the day, life happens. It's really how we react to certain things at certain times within our life. So there's emotions that we need to be aware of when you're looking at addictions that are festering and running in the background. There could be a feeling of helplessness and shame that's crept in. So the only way that somebody can deal with that is to then perhaps turn to alcohol or drugs to blot it out. And then as they do that and they continue to do it, it really then becomes a problem. At some point in an addict's life, the subconscious mind decides that the drug of choice, be it heroin, that extra glass of alcohol, is actually doing them good, when in fact it's doing the opposite. They may feel that they feel better when they take it. Therefore, the subconscious equates it to being a positive element. In a way, if you like, it's similar to smoking. The conscious mind may decide it's bad for you, but the subconscious recognizes that it's often stress relief. It's difficult to overcome, and this is where you're going to come in with your counselling clients to help them. With drug or alcohol addiction, there's other factors. So let's look at the tipping point. There's going to be a tipping point where it does go into an addiction. So maybe a teenager's been experimenting in drugs, a younger person, but they don't realise the enormous risk that they're taking when they're dabbling in that. And often, of course, it can be part of a peer pressure. They might feel vulnerable as that teenager. Of course, the adolescent years can be very difficult as well. There might be pressure on them to do the exams and heavy expectations. So fundamentally, what has actually tipped them over from doing something in a recreational sense or sense of enjoyment to it then actually becoming an addiction for them, something where they can't stop. We're also looking at prescription drugs within the module as well. And we're seeing addiction from your client's perspective. So it's about awareness and acceptance. And the fundamental thing with addiction is that your client, as with anything, but especially with addictions, must have reached a point where they want to make changes. They can't have somebody else wanting to make the changes for them. It's got to come from them. They've realised that it's not doing them any good and that they're at a point where they actually want to make the changes within themselves. So it's your role to understand why that client has sought therapy. So there's information within the training manual on that as well. Some people are more at risk than others. So maybe they've had people in their family that have suffered from an addiction. Maybe some have experimented with substances at an early age. Maybe there's depression and anxiety. Maybe there's known abuse or a trauma of some kind. So if you've got those key elements, those people may be more at risk than others of developing some kind of addiction. We're looking at the brain and drug addiction. We're looking at a spotlight on drugs where we're looking exactly what some drugs particularly do to the brain. And then we're focusing in on alcohol. Alcohol, because it's so readily available, it's legally available to anyone within the UK over the age of 18, in the States over 21. Each country has different restrictions, of course, but alcohol, of course, is often very easily and legally available to somebody. So we're looking about losing control, about excuses, because denial is a very real component with an addiction. People might make an excuse about, I can handle it. I don't use it that much. It helps me more than it harms me. I can stop whenever we want, whenever they want. So we've put some information on each of those avoidance statements. But of course, you're going to have to really look at this. And the key thing here is that your client wants to change. So there's more information in the training manual, as always. But Module 1 gives you some self-assessment tasks. And there's a few there. So make sure that you're working through them before we're moving on to Module 2. Have a great day.